There is a small island in Japan where people routinely live past 100 years old. Not 100 and struggling, 100 and walking to the market, 100 and tending their gardens, 100 and laughing at dinner with their grandchildren. The island is called Okinawa. And for decades, scientists and longevity researchers have traveled there to study what these people are doing differently, what they eat, how they move, how they sleep, and most importantly, what they are not doing. Because here is what nobody ever tells you when they talk about the Okinawan diet. It is not just what they add. It is what they remove. And there is one specific food, one that most people over 60 eat every single day without a second thought, that Okinawa's oldest and most celebrated physician identified as the primary accelerant of biological aging after the age of 60. Not a cigarette, not alcohol, not processed sugar, though that matters too. Something you almost certainly had yesterday. And the moment your body crosses 60 years of age, the way it processes this food changes completely. What your system handled effortlessly at 35 becomes, after 60, a slow and steady signal to every cell in your body that it is time to break down faster. Stay with us, because by the end, you will understand exactly what this food is, precisely why the biology shifts so dramatically after 60, what the research actually says, and what Okinawa's centenarians eat in its place. This information will permanently change the way you think about what you put on your plate. If this is your first time here, welcome. We bring you conversations with physicians and longevity researchers who are looking at aging differently, not as something inevitable to surrender to, but as something science gives us real tools to slow. If what we share today gives you something useful, something that changes even one small habit, please subscribe, like this video, and ring the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. It genuinely means the world to us, and it helps this information reach the people who need it most. Now, let us talk about the man at the center of this. Dr. Yoshiaki Higa spent over 5 decades practicing medicine in Okinawa. He was not a researcher in a laboratory. He was a physician who watched his patients age across generations. He sat with families. He tracked what happened to the ones who lived past 90, past 100, and what happened to the ones who did not. And over those 50 years, one pattern emerged so consistently that he began calling it the invisible accelerant. The food is refined and processed grains, specifically white rice eaten in large quantities, white bread, white pasta, refined flour products, anything from which the fiber, the germ, and the bran have been stripped away, leaving behind almost pure, rapidly digesting starch. Now, before you switch off, stay with us, because this is not the usual simple carbohydrate lecture. What Dr. Higa identified, and what modern research has since confirmed in remarkable detail, is that the problem is not the starch itself. The problem is what happens to refined starch specifically inside an aging body. And that mechanism is something most people have never been told about. Here is the biology. And it matters that you understand this, because once you do, you will never see this food the same way again. When you are young, in your 20s, your 30s, even your 40s, your cells have a remarkable ability to respond to insulin. You eat something that spikes your blood sugar. Your pancreas releases insulin. Your cells open up. Glucose flows in. Your blood sugar returns to normal quickly. The whole cycle takes maybe 90 minutes. After 60, That process slows dramatically. Your cells become less sensitive to insulin. This is not disease. This is normal biological aging. It happens to virtually everyone. But what it means is that when you eat refined grains, which convert to glucose in the bloodstream faster than almost any other food, your blood sugar spikes higher, stays elevated longer, and your body is forced to release more insulin to manage it. And here is where it gets critical. That prolonged state of elevated blood glucose and elevated insulin is not neutral. It triggers a chain of biological events that researchers now call accelerated glycation. Glycation is what happens when sugar molecules attach themselves to proteins throughout your body, to the collagen in your skin, to the proteins in your arteries, to the crystalline proteins in your eyes, to the myelin sheathing around your nerves. When glucose binds to these proteins, it forms compounds called advanced glycation end products. Scientists abbreviate them as AGEs, and the name is not a coincidence. A G S stiffened tissues. They make arteries less flexible, joints more rigid, skin less elastic, and nerves less conductive. They accelerate every visible and invisible marker of aging that we associate with getting old. And here is what makes refined grains so specifically destructive after 60 compared to whole grains. It is the speed. A bowl of white rice converts to blood glucose in roughly 15 to 20 minutes. A bowl of brown rice with its intact fiber takes 60 to 90 minutes. That speed difference is the entire ball game. The slower the conversion, the lower the glucose spike, the less glycation occurs, the fewer AGEs accumulate. Dr. Higa used to tell his patients something that has stayed with researchers who interviewed him. He said, "Our aging is not caused by time. It is caused by sugar meeting your proteins over and over for decades." Now let us look at what the centenarians of Okinawa actually eat instead. The traditional Okinawan diet, before Western food arrived on the island in the 1970s and 80s, was anchored by one specific carbohydrate above almost all others, the Okinawan purple sweet potato, called beni imo in Japanese. And the contrast between what this food does inside the body versus what refined white grain does is almost shocking when you see it laid out. The purple sweet potato has a glycemic index, which measures how quickly a food raises blood sugar, of around 44 to 50. Refined white rice has a glycemic index of 70 to 87, depending on how it is cooked. That is nearly double. And the purple sweet potato contains anthocyanins, the same deep purple pigments found in blueberries and blackberries, which are among the most potent anti-inflammatory compounds found in any food. They directly reduce oxidative stress in the vascular system. They protect the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, and they have been shown in multiple studies to reduce markers of cellular aging at a measurable level. The centenarians of Okinawa were eating this food as the foundation of nearly every meal. Not white rice, not white bread, the sweet potato. They also ate significant quantities of sea vegetables, particularly mozuku and kombu, which are extraordinarily rich in fucoidan, a compound that research from the University of the Ryukyus in Okinawa showed activates something called autophagy in human cells. Autophagy is your body's cellular recycling system. It is the process by which your cells break down and remove damaged components before they accumulate and cause dysfunction. Think of it as your body's internal maintenance crew. And After 60, autophagy slows significantly, unless specific compounds signal the body to activate it. Fucoidan from sea vegetables is one of the few dietary compounds shown to do exactly that. The third pillar is tofu and fermented soy products, eaten in small quantities, several times per week. Not as a protein substitute in the Western sense, as a condiment, as a flavoring. The isoflavones in traditional fermented soy have been linked in population studies to significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease and certain cancers in Okinawan women specifically, with researchers at the National Cancer Center of Japan attributing part of this protection to the phytoestrogen activity of genistein, a compound that appears to help regulate inflammation pathways that accelerate with age. And if you are finding this valuable, if you can already feel the way this reframes something you thought you knew, please take a moment right now to subscribe and like this video. It keeps this kind of research-backed, physician-led conversation alive for the people who need it. Ring that notification bell too. You will not regret it. Now here is the part that most people miss when they hear about the Okinawan diet. They assume it is about restriction, about deprivation, about eating less of everything. It is not. It is about substitution, and there is a profound psychological difference between those two things. Dr. Higa did not tell his patients to stop eating carbohydrates. He told them to swap the speed, slow the conversion, give your body time to process what you are giving it. Because a body that is never spiking, never flooding with insulin, never triggering mass glycation, that body ages differently, not just slightly differently, measurably, visibly, fundamentally differently. The practical substitution is simpler than most people expect. Where you currently eat white rice, try replacing it with either brown rice or, better still, with roasted sweet potato. Any variety, though purple if you can find it. The taste transition takes approximately 2 to 3 weeks for most people. After that, many report actively preferring the richer, more complex flavor. Where you eat white bread, replace it with rye bread or sourdough bread made with whole wheat flour. Sourdough fermentation is particularly important here. The lactic acid bacteria that ferment sourdough dough actually pre-digest much of the starch, lowering the effective glycemic impact by 20 to 30% compared to regular whole wheat bread. This is not a minor difference. This is meaningful. Where you eat white pasta, replace it with legume-based pasta, lentil pasta, chickpea pasta, or reduce the quantity significantly and combine it with a much larger volume of vegetables. The fiber from the vegetables slows gastric emptying and blunts the blood sugar spike from whatever starch is present. There is one more element to this that researchers have only recently begun to understand, and it connects directly to why the Okinawan pattern is so different from just eating healthy grains in isolation. It is the meal composition, not just what they eat, but how they eat it. Traditional Okinawan meals almost never consist of a carbohydrate eaten alone. The sweet potato is eaten alongside bitterly flavored vegetables. Goya, the Okinawan bitter melon, is the most famous example, and alongside sea vegetables and small amounts of protein. This combination is not accidental. Bitter compounds in foods like Goya have been shown to directly stimulate glucose transporter activity in skeletal muscle, thus helping cells absorb glucose more efficiently, independent of insulin. Less insulin required means less insulin signaling, and chronically high insulin signaling is now understood to be one of the primary drivers of what biologists call the mTOR pathway, a cellular growth and aging mechanism that, when chronically overactivated, accelerates the very cellular aging processes we are trying to slow. They eat slowly. The Okinawan principle of hara hachibu, eating until you are 80% full, is well known. But the mechanism behind why it helps extends beyond caloric restriction. Eating slowly means your gut hormones have time to signal satiety before you have overeaten, and it means your digestive system processes incoming starch more gradually, further flattening the glucose curve. And they walk after meals, not long walks, not exercise, a 15 to 20-minute gentle walk. This is physiologically significant. Muscle contraction during walking activates GLUT4 transporters in muscle cells. These are proteins that pull glucose out of the bloodstream directly, bypassing the need for insulin entirely. A short walk after eating can reduce post-meal blood glucose peaks by 15 to 20%. Every day, 3 times a day, compounded over decades. Let us bring this together into something concrete and actionable, because the goal is never to simply understand. The goal is to change something. If you are over 60, here is what the research from Okinawa and from longevity science more broadly suggests. Remove refined grains as the foundation of your meals. This does not mean never eating them. It means they stop being the base. They stop being the default. White rice, white bread, white pasta, reduce them significantly. Not because carbohydrates are the enemy, because refined, fast-converting carbohydrates specifically, in an aging body with declining insulin sensitivity, are producing AGEs and triggering glycation at a rate your younger self never had to worry about. Replace them with slow carbohydrates, sweet potato, legumes, intact whole grains where the fiber is fully preserved, root vegetables. These give your body energy without the spike, without the flood, without the cascade of accelerated aging that follows. Add bitter vegetables to your meals when you can. Goya, if you can find it. If not, arugula, radicchio, dandelion greens, broccoli rabe. The bitter compounds matter. Walk after you eat. Not far, not fast, just move. And eat less at each sitting than you think you need, not to starve. To protect your mTOR pathway, to give your cells the signal that resources are measured, not flooded, and that your body needs to be efficient and careful rather than growing and accumulating. These are not dramatic interventions. They are not expensive. They do not require a prescription or a clinic visit. They are the daily habits of people who live to 100 and remain sharp and mobile, doing it. One last thing, because it matters. Dr. Higa, when asked by a journalist in his final years what the single biggest mistake he saw patients make, did not talk about exercise. He did not talk about sleep or stress management, though those matter enormously. He said, they feed the fire of their blood sugar every day without knowing they are doing it. They eat what they always ate. They do not know that after 60, the same food lands differently. They do not know their body changed, so the food stays the same and the aging speeds up, and they cannot understand why. You now know what they did not. The fire of blood sugar, fed daily by refined grains in an aging body, is one of the most documented and most overlooked mechanisms in all of longevity research. And it is also one of the most correctable. You do not need to live in Okinawa to eat the way Okinawa's oldest people eat. You do not need to find Benny Emo at your local market, though it would not hurt. You need to slow the sugar, protect your proteins, move after meals, and eat until you are satisfied, not until you are full. Your cells are listening to every meal you eat. They are responding to the signals food sends about how fast to age. The science is clear on this. The question is simply what signals you choose to send them starting today. If this conversation gave you something real, a new way of understanding your body, a habit worth trying, a reason to look differently at what is on your plate, please subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell. It is the simplest way to stay connected to this kind of conversation, and it helps us bring more physicians and researchers into this space to talk about the things that actually matter for how well you age. Thank you for being here. Take good care of yourself